some 30 minutes time right here on France 24. No truce without a broader deal. That was the position late Wednesday of Hamas's exiled leader. 17 days on, Palestinians paying a very heavy price. More than 700 killed, a vast majority of them civilians. We're getting word of another shelling of a UN compound housing a school in the Gaza Strip. Israelis too, by the way, paying a high price. Not just the 32 soldiers killed in battle, but is world public opinion, which according to the visiting UK Foreign Secretary, with every day turns more and more against Israel. So what's on offer? The US Secretary of State, whose shuttle diplomacy is taking him back to Cairo this Thursday, is speaking of progress, but progress towards what? What do Hamas backers, Qatar and Turkey want? And how about the Islamist movements, I guess you could call it their new best enemy, Egypt? More broadly, can good come of all the bad of the last 16 days? Today in the France 24 debate, you get a truce at all costs. And with us to talk about it, political scientist Julien Théron. Thank you for being with us here on France 24. You teach at the University of Paris, Versailles. Also with us, Israeli-born publisher Yael Lerer, former spokesperson for Israeli Arab member of the Knesset, Azmi Bashar. Thank you for being with us. And Egyptian political economy consultant Mohamed Elalfy. Welcome back to the France 24 debate. The France 24 debate where you can join the conversation, and you have on Facebook and Twitter our hashtag F24debate. Now, before we talk about the what's going on the diplomatic front, this latest attack with the death toll rising above 700, a spokesperson for the U.S. Secretary of State in the past half hour saying how the shelling of the another school, the fourth time it's happened, underscores the need to end the violence. And when you see this story, and we've had some strong words, we're even hearing Julien Théron that there could be UN personnel that were killed in this latest shelling. When you see this going on, at what point does it become unacceptable?
Well, the point is that actually, regarding to this situation, nobody respects the international humanitarian law. Neither Hamas sending rockets on Israeli towns full of citizens, civilians, and Israel, even though it claims to respect it and try to limit the number of civilian deaths, well, actually, we see that a majority of the 700 deaths are actually civilians.
The majority of them civilians include, in fact, the United Nations today saying that children are dying at a rate of 1 per hour.
Yeah, it's a lot, and there's a mediatic war, regarding to those figures, and it's very hard for Israel to continue the fighting, limiting the number of casualties.
Now, the U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, as we were saying, is back in Cairo, where he speaks of some progress towards a truce. This after shuttling to Israel and the West Bank. But late Wednesday, the exiled leader of Hamas, Khalid Mashal, warned a truce has to be about more than a mere cessation of hostilities.
I call for the permanent opening of the border crossings. It is the property of the Arab states, allowing medical supplies, food supplies, allowing medical crews to enter and help the 150,000 refugees in Gaza, who are now taking shelters in schools there. We are in dire need for fuel and power. This is the duty of everybody.
Mohamed Elalfy, what's your thoughts on that?
It's actually it's a critical situation, and
a reasonable request though by the leader of Hamas. Let's open the border. Find a way to open the border permanently.
Yes, reasonable if we can trust Khalid Mashal. Khalid Mashal is the first one betray the Palestinian case. He's a real trader for blood. He's not protecting his people. I understand that if you are a real leader, first of all, you have to protect your people, not to sacrifice by the blood of your people to be die every day. And as you know, everyone knows there is no equality in power between Hamas and Israel, Israeli army. So why you sacrifice by your people in this massacre? You should, because you are waiting financial support to add more money to your bank account. That is the situation. Anyway, let's talk about what is done on the ground in Gaza. It's a real massacre, kind of genocide. We have eyes, we can see, and we can talk more. But if they are talking now, this Hamas extremist movement is talking about ceasefire, humanitarian ceasefire for several days. No, in Egypt we need a final solution to ceasefire for a long time. But those people now we have the Egyptian initiative supported by the whole world. They are talking, no, we need Qatar and Turkey to play on. Qatar is supporting and Turkey the extreme movements, and Hamas one of these extreme movements supports by Qatar and Turkey.
All right, so you're saying that basically you can't trust so far Khaled Mashal's word.
Khaled Mashal, Ismail Haniyeh, most of them are real traders for the Palestinian blood. We have to deal, the world must deal only with Mahmoud Abbas, the official person we can deal with, not with the extreme movements inside.
Yes. Yeah, Lerer.
I think that it's really disgusting, I must say, to blame the victim in this way. I mean, the situation, I want to get back to your first question, from what point it's become unbearable. It is unbearable from the first day. And the first day, actually, it was before 70 days ago, because actually the Israelis, and we all remember the story and what happened. There was this national government, national unity government between Hamas and Fatah. In a way, that Hamas and Fatah, Mahmoud Abbas and Khaled Mashal and Ismail Haniyeh agreed to have united leadership, and Israel opposed this from the first moment. Then we had this incident of kidnapping the three young settlers, Israeli settlers, and after this, the Israelis started invasion in the West Bank. They arrested 400 people. They killed already 7 Palestinians before the famous incidents of civilians killing.
There was the revenge attack.
Before the revenge attack, they killed, they broke the ceasefire that used to be before in Gaza. They broke the agreement. And then everybody now present it as an attack of Hamas, as like there is 2 equal parties. In one side, we had hardly, the Israelis, they started to have soldiers, victim soldiers, which is painful.
But as an Israeli, I can say,
after they decided to enter with the soldiers inside the Gaza, but bombing from there, killing so many people. If we compare, for example, the situation, I just want one sentence. If you compare the population of Gaza to the population of France, for example, we would have speaking about 12,000 victims. Just imagine, 12,000 French victims, and the world say nothing. And nobody agree, and some people said, yes, maybe Israel bombed Gaza, this should stop. Somebody have to stop it. And the international community, like my colleague here just said, do nothing. Nobody respect any international law here.
We do agree. We need ceasefire.
Nobody. Israel can
but not
stop.
Israel should not.
Israel should stop its attack without any conditions.
The question at the outset was: do you first have a humanitarian truce and then broaden it out to something more substantive, or the other way around? We heard Khaled Mashal earlier saying that you can't have a ceasefire until you've talked about broader issues, most notably the permanent opening of the border. Egypt's president, for his part, clearly not subscribing to Hamas's plan of action.
The Egyptian initiative, in the interest of clarity, didn't include any conditions from any of the parties. We said, first, ease the tensions and hold a ceasefire, and open the crossings after the security situation is stable, so that the aid can reach the people. Then sit down to talk and negotiate, and we can move towards solving these issues.
So, Julien, Théron, when you track the movements of the U.S. Secretary of State over the past 48 hours, he went to Cairo, he then went to Israel, he went to the West Bank, he's back in Cairo. do you get a sense that we're working towards a small agreement or a bigger agreement?
Well, that's very hard to say. Of course, he would like a huge agreement, a regional one, if it's possible, maybe even including Jordanians. But it's very hard nowadays regarding to the regional situation. So maybe a small truce would actually do something regarding to a regional ceasefire.
Explain to us what a small truce is.
Well, that would be, for instance, what our colleague said, that a kind of humanitarian ceasefire for several days. But it's not much, and actually does not solve the trouble at all. Israel has been introducing itself, militarily speaking, in 2009 and 2012 and 2014 now. Well, the point is that it doesn't have the situation. If the point, we have to look at the reasons why the two parts are actually fighting. The reason why the Israelis are fighting is to say, actually, to destroy the Hamas arsenal and the tunnels. But the point is that if they leave after the intervention, it will be very probable that Hamas will rebuild some new tunnels and new stocks of weapons.
And on that point, our correspondent was telling us that one of the things that was being discussed was a Palestinian force, not a Hamas force, but a Palestinian force that would be sort of there as a buffer near the border. Do you think that would be amenable?
Maybe Israel will be able actually to reduce Hamas influence, but there's a main risk. If we imagine this kind of force, for instance, dominated by Fatah, well, the point is that all the more extremist groups than Hamas will take a better place, and maybe we'll see some kind of terror attacks against this Palestinian Authority force. There's several groups around waiting for Hamas to collapse. There's Jihad Islamic, for instance, but there's also others. So it may be actually not solve the situation.
So how do you come to an agreement whereby you can reopen those borders in a more permanent way and that people are not trapped in Gaza?
Well, Hamas tries to give some options before accepting a ceasefire. And one of them is the end of the blockades and the opening of Rafah checkpoint with Egypt. But the point is that it might be necessary, but if the Egyptian proposal is actually not putting any kind of conditions, well, that will be very hard.
Mohamed Elalfy, under what conditions would Egypt reopen the Rafah border crossing?
In this point,
in a more permanent way.
Yeah, in this point exactly, Egypt didn't sign for the AMA, the agreement for the crossing, for the border crossing. We have 7 gates, as you know, with this sector, and the Palestinians themselves signed in 2005, not the Egyptians. But Rafah only for individuals. Rafah gate only for individuals, not for other materials. The Palestinians need...
Which you agree is not tenable over the long run.
Yes, let me say, Hamas is giving a hard conditions. They said, open Rafah gate for everything. Of course, we can't do it because they sign with the international community, with Israel, with the United States, with the EU. That is, we have 7 gates, only Rafah for individuals. They have to amend this agreement with the people they signed with them, so we can discuss. But the final about Rafah, Egypt will not. Hamas is asking the international society to put Rafah gate under the international supervision, but Egypt, of course, will not accept this.
Why?
Because it's our land. You bought it from. You can put from the other side under the international supervision, but from our side, no.
So, under what conditions do you open the border permanently?
Of course, we provide the Egyptian initiative, and they can go to discuss, and then we can open. That is, and
but the Egyptian initiative is that humanitarian truce, nothing more.
No. It's only to cease fire, and then, as the president said, then they can, both sides can stay to discuss what is the next steps. But Hamas is playing a dirty role with Turkey and Qatar in this area. We will not allow to them, to Hamas or to Qatar or to Turkey to play this role against us too. And as you know, Hamas also play a dirty role against the Egyptian border, and they kill Egyptian soldiers one year ago in Ramadan in the similar time like that in Ramadan. So we will not forgive them too. But Egypt is not apart from this conflict. Egypt just to ensure the success of these negotiations.
Egypt is there to ensure the success of the Israeli occupation, of putting the people in Gaza in prison. You are speaking here about this ceasefire and condition, non-condition. There are kids that are being killed all the time. There are hospitals and schools that are being bombed. This thing can be stopped with any ceasefire. If the Israeli Prime Minister, I'm an Israeli, I care about the Israeli people, I care about all the people in the region. For a better future, this should be stopped immediately. And the UN could enforce it, Europe could enforce it with some sanctions. All of them saying that all of this, Hamas is like this, Hamas is like that, and meanwhile, okay, we will kill children in Gaza like it's nothing, and we will kill civilians.
I do agree with you.
And the whole because no, you don't agree with you. But I think the Egyptians here, they're doing all what they can do to continue this massacre. And it's
I disagree with you. Egyptians didn't approve the massacre. No, my lady.
I have this privilege to understand Arabic. I see the Egyptian television.
Egyptians
it's
didn't
really
approve the
disgusting.
massacre.
It's really disgusting. It's a lack of democratic culture.
Let me tell you and tell our viewers. Hamas established in 1984 by Israeli Mossad before the announcement of Hamas in 1987.
But all of this, all what I'm saying, put all of this aside. People are being killed every second.
Why you didn't blame
every second, every hour there is a kid that is being killed.
By the way, before
but this is the issue. This is the issue. I don't care. I don't care. I didn't vote for Hamas.
I understand.
I didn't. I mean, it's not. But there is
Hamas is killing. Hamas is killing the Palestinian people before the conflict with Israel.
Try to put it in the proportion. Try to imagine 12,000 French people being killed like this.
If you would like
2,000 of them kids.
Excuse me.
Think about each family. Think of those families that 28 members of the same family.
If you would like to talk about human rights,
think about it.
Don't talk about human rights now. You must go to the,
no, I don't want. I want because now there is a massacre.
Hamas was killing the Palestinians. Hamas is killing the Palestinians.
Now there is a continuous massacre. Now there are people that are being killed now. Now the Israeli army is bombing and bombing and bombing. And this should end for the sake of all people in the region.
Also like Hamas to continue inside Gaza.
All right, just one final question. I'll put it to you, Julien Théron. We've seen passions running high here, obviously running much higher in the Middle East. With all this shuttle diplomacy that's going on, do you see a light at the end of the tunnel?
Well, it's a pretty good example that it's very hard to talk about this topic in the region, but, well, at least we have passionate debaters. I think there's a very interesting point. It was the several former heads of Shin Bet, the interior secret services in charge of Palestinian territories in Israel. Well, some of them, actually, were all agreeing to the point that, actually, Israel should talk to Hamas to introduce a truce, generally speaking, I mean, a permanent one. And actually, I think that, unfortunately, it's what we are not seeing nowadays.
All right, and perhaps politically, it'll be interesting to see whether or not that becomes amenable with time. Julien Théron, I want to thank you. I want to thank Yael, Lerer, also Mohamed Elalfy for being with us. Thank you for joining us here in the France 24 debate.